On this episode of In the Life, a gathering place for gay griots.
We've had one on sex toys, which was sold out.
Out and on the road with 2 gay truckers, plus Paul Rudnick on the Falwell Flap.
These guys are not only repulsive, they're truly nuts.
And the murder of Fred Martinez Jr. All this and more on In the Life, America's gay and lesbian cultural news magazine.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Amringen Foundation. Additional support provided by the Gill Foundation, the Overbrook Foundation, James Johnson, William J. Resnick, Peter Zimmer and Jim Stepp, the Arcus Foundation.
The Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice.
And the annual support of In the Life members like you.
Welcome to In the Life. I'm Katherine Linton. 2 men, their dogs, and the open road. These are the ingredients that go into the unique love story of Tom Walker and Carl Warren. Tom and Carl are life partners whose relationship not only lends new meaning to the word togetherness, but is a testament to the diversity of the gay community. Later on this episode, we'll visit them as they get their act together and take it on the road. Also, correspondent Tanya Barfield introduces us to a group of gay seniors who came together to share their stories and found a community. Correspondent Andy Hum is out and about, and writer Paul Rudnick speaks out about the Falwell fallout. We begin at the American Indian Community House in New York. For more than 30 years, this organization has provided support services for Native Americans and worked to foster understanding between Native and non-Native communities. Our first segment is about a Native American youth and a crime that has become all too familiar. Some of the victims have names you might recognize, like Matthew Shepard and Brandon Tina, the real-life subject of the film Boys Don't Cry. But others, like Fred Martinez, a transgender Navajo youth, haven't made the national headlines or movie marquees. Yet for the gay community of Cortez, Colorado, Martinez's murder had a major impact, highlighting issues of sexual orientation as well as those of class and race.
Well, to me, he was happy all the time, and he's always outspoken.
He just loved life. He just, he had fun doing whatever he did. He was a really social person.
There was nothing for him to hide. He wasn't hiding anything. He's just saying that, just being myself. He enjoyed being the way he was, and he enjoyed having a lot of friends.
On June 16, 2001, Fred C. Martinez, FC to his family and friends, a 16-year-old Nadle, or transgendered Navajo youth, went to a carnival at the Ute Mountain Roundup Rodeo in his hometown of Cortez, Colorado.
He came in and he goes, "Hi, Mom, I'm home." He went in the back room, got something, and came back out, and he says, "Well, I'll be back later. I love you, Mom." And I told him, "Be careful and take care." So he left again. That's the last time I seen him.
5 days later, Fred's partially decomposed body was found off a dirt road below a canyon rim, not far from where he lived. He had been bludgeoned to death with a rock. In the weeks following the grim discovery, 18-year-old Sean Murphy was arrested for the murder, based on tips that he had bragged about, quote, beating up a fag. According to reports, Murphy and a friend had given Fred a ride home on the night he disappeared. After dropping him off, the two had discussed Fred's sexual orientation. Murphy then left the apartment they were visiting and returned 20 minutes later, covered in blood.
Someone's future was gone, was just erased, who met a violent, brutal death, probably because he was transgendered, not lech. changed the world for me.
John Peters Campbell moved with his partner Alan Cook to Cortez 4 years ago, becoming an active member of the local community as well as a board member for the Four Corners Gay and Lesbian Alliance for Diversity, an educational, social, and advocacy organization. Learning about the circumstances surrounding Fred's murder brought home some ugly truths.
I've never thought of this as a dangerous town. And then I realized that, of course, it is dangerous for some people. I was devastated because Fred was someone, not that I knew personally, but that I'd seen around. And it made me feel good as an older gay man that there were kids who were coming out that early. And it never occurred to me that they were in danger.
In fact, Fred's two-spirit, transgender identity, was not something that high school officials and many other people in Cortez were prepared to handle.
There was one time they told me that he was wearing shoes that he's not supposed to be wearing. And then later on, these girls come in and she was wearing the same shoes. And I just sat there and I said, well, I always call him Sonny, you know. And I said, Sonny, look over there, that girl's wearing the same shoes as you are, you know. How come she's not being sent home?
Fred was sent home on a fairly regular basis because he would be wearing eyeliner. I think once he was sent home, he was wearing jellies on his feet, those little girl shoes. And that is not the proper way to respond to a child that's being harassed.
One time, my little cousin, her and a friend and FC were walking, and she said that these Anglo boys, or these white boys, came up and they were saying stuff, yelling at him, like, you know, hey, faggot, what are you guys hanging around with this guy for, and things like that.
Kids like Fred have to contend not only with anti-gay bias, but also with the racism that exists in a border town like Cortez, located right next to the Ute Mountain Indian Reservation.
I know there's a lot of harsh feelings in this area against a lot of natives. I don't know if it's because they're, you know, Cortez is just right next door to a reservation.
I think many in the gay community in Cortez and in Durango felt like they had this false sense of security or safety because they were white, middle class, productive, involved members of the community. And they've really had their world shattered in many ways. And they're struggling with what they now recognize as some of their own biases. I'm so proud of how folks are working here. I've never seen such hard work and dedication and the willingness to go through situations that are painful. And I think a lot of us can learn lessons from the community.
As news spread about the murder, 4C GLAD, the Colorado Anti-Violence Project, and PFLAG, or Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, combined their resources to provide support to Fred's family, ensure that the crime was thoroughly investigated and the media accurately informed.
We realized that this was potentially a very serious situation that had much more far-reaching consequences than just Cortez and Montezuma County.
Carolyn Wagner and Gabby Clayton, PFLAG moms whose own sons were victims of hate crimes, headed to Cortez to be part of the support team.
We're a rapid response team of parents of hate crime victims to come and assist other families, parents who are in the midst of a situation that we're very familiar with. We went through this alone, and what our goal is to ensure that if parents do not want to be alone, they're not going to be alone. We're going to be there. And Pauline asked for us to come and help her because it can be very hard. You're dealing with the grief and shock of losing a child on top of dealing with the justice system, media, organizations you've never heard of, and hate mongers, always the hate mongers, and it just can be more than one can bear.
Finally, 4C GLAD and the Colorado Anti-Violence Project enlisted the help of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation to help handle the media.
What we bring particularly is media expertise, how to handle the media, how to educate the media, and it's a really important piece of the puzzle because how the media portrays and writes about bias-motivated crimes has a huge impact on the outcome of investigations. It also has a huge outcome in terms of whether or not people learn something from this, and how families are treated, frankly, because many times the coverage can be sensational and it's very disrespectful.
I was very concerned about how the media would handle the issue of Fred's murder.
Sage Douglas Eagle Remington, a member of the Southern Ute tribe, has been involved in the Indian movement since the 60s, and in the early 90s founded the Two-Spirit Society of Colorado to address the specific needs of gay and lesbian Native Americans.
In my involvement in the gay and lesbian community in the last 10 years, I've seen it transform itself from crisis management of events to a very coordinated effort. And that's what happened in Cortez. I felt very assured that there were a group of people that were in a position to be able to take the issue, monitor it, control it so it doesn't get out of hand, and make sure that there was equity in the reporting of the news, and there was equity in describing Fred's lifestyle.
Although the circumstances of Fred's murder echoed those of Matthew Shepard in many ways, this story was not one that many national media outlets were anxious to tell.
It's hard not to look at a picture of Matthew Shepard and look at a picture of Fred Martinez and not really get why the media were not as interested. Fred was many things that, when you add them all up, made him very much the other for people. He was a person of color. He was Navajo. He was poor. He was transgender. He also identified as gay. He was a complicated kid in a tough situation with no privilege.
My son, Fred C. Martinez Jr., FC as he was known by family and friends, left this world much too soon because of those who fear and hate anyone who is different.
One of these days, we're going to look back and understand how historic the community organizing around Fred Martinez's death really was. Because this was, in my mind, the first time at this level that we have put together all the pieces to really make positive change out of a really horrifying tragedy.
The Indians believe that there is no death, only a change of worlds. So Fred is in another world now, and obviously a better place where we will eventually be.
I also know in my heart that he has brought us all together in many places everywhere tonight, that we will now walk together on a path of true injustice and never again allow our children and loved ones to suffer in silence or walk alone.
The trial of murder suspect Sean Murphy is scheduled to begin on February 20th in Cortez, Colorado. He's being charged with both first and second-degree murder in the death of Fred Martinez, Jr. Throughout this, our 10th anniversary season, we're airing special segments from the In the Life archives. This next segment first aired in 1996.
It's one of the best-known landmarks in all of Los Angeles, the Capitol Records Tower. Until recently, though, if you were a band or a singer looking to get a record contract, being openly gay was the kiss of death. Melissa Etheridge, Elton John, and Katie Lang have all changed things a little. And now there's a group of musicians who hope to change it some more. Their organization is called OUTMUSIC, and their goal is to develop and promote gay singers, songwriters, and musicians.
Melinda DeMaio.
I think the great strength in OUTMUSIC has been the explosion of independent records, independently produced records that are now beginning to catch the attention of the music industry. And there are dozens of excellent recordings by lots of talented people that are getting attention, and deservedly so.
3 of the many OUTMUSIC members shared with us their art and the songs that tell their stories: Keith Christopher, Nedra Johnson, and Tom McCormack.
I wrote Pieces of Lives after having seen the Names Project for the first time in 1987 on the Capitol Mall in D.C.
I miss my friends. I can't say how much. No one can measure how deeply we touch. You and I, we keep hanging on.
The key to the song is, you know, if you love someone, for Christ's sake, tell them while you have a chance.
These are more than pieces of lives, more than the memories left behind. We cannot mend what's been so torn apart until we accept each man and each man's heart.
When I wrote the song, I meant to both call on the works of Audre Lorde and Pat Parker, and also just, you know, it's a coming out song of sorts.
Where will you be when they come? Are you gonna stand by me when they come? Your silence won't protect you, mine never did protect me. Where will you be?
With the climate in the world today, it's like we all need to be out and showing up for each other. So it's just that, where will you be when they come? They're here.
Folks will find a way to hate you, no matter what you do. And you may pretty Jesus, you may be righteous through and through. Oh, but folks just into hating. Oh, so keep on doing what you do.
I think my songs came out before I did. My songs told me that I was gay, or informed me or helped me accept that before I ever consciously did.
Woke up today, found out I'd been missing. Woke up today, found out I'd been gone. No sign of violence, disappeared into silence, left no trace that I had moved on.
This woman came up to me afterwards, and she had the most strange look on her face, and she said, "You've been following me." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, that song is about me.
I've been erased, been misplaced, I found another face. Maybe it found me. Maybe the sound of my heart scared me away from recognizing what was me. Away from improvising without a guarantee. Away from realizing what I am is what I shall be, so where to go? Find you've been missing.
The more you talk from your experience, the more likely you're going to trigger a response in someone else.
Have you never been lonely for something you could not name?
There is a space that needs to be filled by gays and lesbians expressing their personal truth, you know, their special insights to the world. I think it's a gift to the world.
You've been missing out on your life.
Since this segment first aired, Nedra Johnson has released a full-length album entitled Testify, and Tom McCormack has toured the country with his multimedia work that targets homophobia called Hate Speech and Love Songs. Sadly, Keith Christopher died in 1998 of AIDS-related complications.
When Howard Ashman and I were working on Beauty and the Beast, he was HIV positive and was very concerned about people finding out about his health status. And so he held off as long as possible until he finally had to let people know. Despite his concerns, Disney was wonderful. And they sent producers and directors and animators and people to a hotel near Howard's house and worked with him every second they possibly could until he was gone. Through Beauty and the Beast, I was involved in a watershed moment when Bill, Howard's partner, accompanied me on stage and accepted the Oscars for Howard. I'm Alan Menken, and you're watching In the Life.
The hottest couple on Broadway, hundreds of gay journalists meet in Dallas, and a day when everybody's gay. We'll brief you on these stories and more as we bring you news and cultural events from around the country in Out and About. In response to the tragic events of September 11th, members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community of New York came together to renew their commitment to combating hate, intolerance, and prejudice.
As a result of the World Trade Center attack, we are already seeing an increase in intolerance and hate violence.
My soul is free.
A coalition of local and national groups joined together to sponsor the event at the New York Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Community Center, which featured the New York Gay Men's Chorus, the Gay Gotham Chorus, and soprano Aprile Milo.
Well, as a member of the NYPD and a member of the Gay Artists actually, and a member of this community at large, it's been really beautiful to be a part of this. I think it's been very healing.
Back and forth to the firehouse and the site and back and forth, so we're a little isolated, and it seems like the whole world has reached out to us to kind of touch us a little, and it means a great deal.
The evening concluded with a candlelighting ceremony and a moment of silence to remember and honor all of those lost in the terrorist attacks in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. Over 400 people gathered recently for the 10th annual National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association convention in Dallas, Texas. Founded in 1990, the NLGJA works within the news industry to foster fair and accurate coverage of the LGBT community. Through seminars, panel discussions, and networking events, NLGJA members examined the relationship between the gay and lesbian community and the mainstream media.
We have some controversy going on. We're hosting some critics of gay and lesbians who work for religious right organizations. They produce what they consider journalism. We're here to critique that journalism as well, to critique how we cover as LGBT media or mainstream media critics of gays and lesbians.
Years of lobbying for domestic partner benefits resulted in the NLGJA's most recent success when Gannett, one of the nation's largest media companies, announced at the convention that they will now offer DP benefits to all employees.
Hey, baby, don't you do me wrong. Come and love your mama all night long, you're right.
New York's ever outrageous Wigstock Festival, the legendary drag extravaganza and celebration of big hair, recently had its final performance in New York. Billed as the end of an era, founder and producer Lady Bunny says that the 17-year-old event has become too costly to produce.
Without Wigstock, you will never get all of these queens in one place at one time in New York City.
Many of you may not know the story of Wigstock.
Since 1985, Wigstock has spotlighted some of the greatest performers from New York's unique drag scene. As the subject and inspiration of a feature film, a number of documentary projects, and numerous Wigstock festivals around the world, Wigstock's lasting legacy to pop culture will be more than just big hair.
The dogs had wigs.
I think also you see people out in the audience, and they're expressing themselves. They're doing something they wouldn't normally do.
At the Callicoon Community Center in rural upstate New York, nearly 200 residents of the area recently came together for A Day to Be Gay in Sullivan County. Both gay and straight people alike were invited to come and enjoy an afternoon of gay music and culture.
You know, gay people are everywhere, and it's important that, you know, it be known and that we get exposure that way.
This first annual event was a fundraiser for radio station WJFF in Jeffersonville, New York. Kathy Reeser, the longtime host of a weekly radio show on WJFF called Out Loud and Queer, produced the day-long festival.
I thought Out Loud and Queer should have a fundraiser because there's money in this community. Let's support the station who's been supporting the program.
But not everyone wanted A Day to Be Gay. A number of residents in the small community objected to using the local community center as the site for the event.
It started out by ripping down our flyers. It's just sort of been a lot of calls to the radio station, calls to the community center threatening to withdraw financial support from the community center.
It was important for the event to happen here at the Delaware Community Center because we have a large group of gay people here, and you know, there was no other reason they shouldn't be here.
In recognition of Gay and Lesbian Pride Month, a public library in Alamogordo, New Mexico installed a small gay pride exhibit inside the library. But the public's reaction was not what the library expected, and the exhibit was quickly taken down.
People actually cut up their library cards. It generated a ton of letters to the editor. And they were so worried about how their children were going to be affected by that horrible display. But yet they couldn't see, how are your children going to be affected by your hatred?
One local columnist not only protested the dismantling of the exhibit in her column, she made a personal, life-altering decision.
I had thought about doing it, writing a column and coming out, but I never had the guts.
Her coming out article prompted a visit from a local man who thought he was the only gay person in the area. Reading her column saved his life. He had been contemplating suicide.
Now I know why I happened to find the courage to write that column and to come out in such a public way.
A happy ending will pep up your play. Oedipus won't bomb if he winds up with Mom. Keep it gay. Keep it gay. Keep it gay.
They are Roger Debris and Carmen Gia, and they are the hottest couple on Broadway right now. And though you may not yet know their names, you almost certainly have heard of their show, Mel Brooks' The Producers. Actors Gary Beach and Roger Bart play the very out and proud couple in this juggernaut of the current Broadway season.
In The Producers, I play Roger Debris, the director of Springtime for Hitler. And this man, Roger Bart, plays Carmen Gia, my...
common law assistant.
Once it's said, you are dead.
I remember we used to say that it would be the kind of couple that you would love to go over to their house and have dinner some nights, and because you just know that it would be a wonderful, wonderful evening.
And you would end in a conga line.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Out! Get out! Shows should be more pretty. Shows should be more witty. Shows should be more, what's the word? Gay? Exactly.
Even the most conservative audiences that perhaps start at the beginning of our scene like, oh my God, what is going on here? By the end of that scene, I like to say they go gay, but the entire audience enjoys us.
Just keep it light, keep it bright, keep it gay.
But some critics of the show have complained that their over-the-top antics feed negative gay stereotypes.
I have heard a little bit about some of the gay and lesbian press coming down on us a bit. We're just too gay for words. I mean, that we're just that one side of gayness. And maybe that's true. I don't know. But I do know this. We also project two men who totally love each other, totally are themselves, and they do what they want to do. And I see that's the strongest individual in the world who can do that. And if two people can love each other and do that, that's miraculous. So I think we're something to attain.
Comedy's joy is a constant delight. Drama lovers annoy us and ruin our nights and we distribute. And it's the day I'll sign. Roger Elizabeth Debris. Keep it
During the decade that In the Life has been on the air, the movement for gay and lesbian civil rights has made progress on a number of fronts. According to the Human Rights Campaign, only 12 companies offered domestic partnership benefits to their employees in 1990. Today, 4,304 employers are known to provide same-sex partnership benefits, including more than 117 state and local governments and 148 companies in the Fortune 500. This represents a 36,000% increase. I'm Patricia Clarkson, and you're watching In the Life.
Hi, I'm Edward Albee, and you're watching In the Life.
Still to come on In the Life, a gay couple keeps on trucking, and Paul Rudnick's Outtake. But first.
In West African culture, a griot is a person, often a senior member of the group, who keeps an oral history of the tribe or village. In our next segment, the village is Brooklyn, New York, and we meet a group of gay African-American elders who are finding community and support through sharing history and experience.
GRIOT is a organization, it's like a center for seniors, for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered seniors of all colors. It's an organization to make a safe space for these seniors and provide some kind of programming such as community forums, seminars, to disseminate information and to have some kind of social outlet.
Because it is an organization for over 50. We have volunteers that's younger than 50, and we, inform them that when they get 50, they can become a member. It's no fee to join. We don't charge a fee because we are a non-profit organization.
I'm sure there are gay people in senior centers and other senior centers, but with us, it's more open, it's free. People can discuss and feel comfortable being who they are.
I grew up around here, and I grew up with many lesbians and gays. And as we're getting older, I was seeing less and less, and I would talk to my friends. We were seeing less and less. And some of our friends were going through a lot of different problems.
They met together as a group. Like they had known each other since teenagers. And they happened to run into each other on the street, and they said, one thing, we need to form some kind of group or some kind of thing. Not a social thing, but something that would help us,
We mailed out a mailing that we were trying to start a group for lesbian and gay seniors, who's interested, and many, many people came.
And they told everybody that knows somebody to bring somebody.
So eventually there came a time when we needed to have our own space, and we looked around and we negotiated with the Y to get some space, and so that's what we've been doing now.
And that's how it all started, back in 1996.
Lesbians and gays, when they're old, they not only have to suffer ageism and sexism, and racism, homophobia, all that added in the mix is kind of much. And we come from a tradition that's supposed to take care of the elders. And we have to remind ourselves that was what we're supposed to be doing.
That's what it's about. It's not about, trying to take care of the world, but it's trying to take care of our own. Let them feel that they have a support system behind themselves.
We try very much to keep, make things available that people can become, more active.
We have dances. We have
game nights.
We have computer classes 3 times a week. We have fitness and aerobics and swimming classes.
We had the computer class. Must be about 18 of us in the computer class. This one lady came in, and she sat down, and she says, "Oh, y'all seem like y'all know each other. You know, everybody here seems so familiar." So one of the girls said, "Yeah, we're a gay organization." She said, "You what?" She said, "A gay organization." She sat there a few minutes before you see. She got her back and she ran out the room. You know, because she said, "There were so many of us in there." I guess she said, "My God, what are these people gonna do to me?" And she ran out.
We started giving a forum the second Saturday of every month, and we would have such and whenever we had a forum, we would have someone from our community do it. For example, if we had legal information, we would have an older gay lawyer do it. If we had financial information, we had a wonderful African-American lesbian who does that as a living.
We've had one on sex toys, which was sold out, you know, almost turned people away. You'd be surprised.
We have people that come to Griot from all over the city. We even have people that live in other states that insist that they want to be on the mailing list, you know. So what we're doing, we found that it actually works. When you go to a senior center, first of all, you have to realize that only a fraction of seniors even go to senior centers. And of that fraction that go, of course, many are gay, but the older gay community is really used to living what you call in the closet. So when they go, they hide most of themselves, and they're afraid of discrimination, and they can never really completely relax.
I can respect and understand those who have to still be in the closet because of the homophobic that we have out here. Their jobs, their neighbors, the community, and also their family. So I could respect that. But that does not say that they're not in the life or they're trying to hide something. They're just cautious is the word I would use.
And so you come up in that kind of culture. In addition to that, for lesbians and gays, I mean, there was serious consequence if you were found to be lesbian or gay. I mean, you live in a very different time now.
I was born in Manhattan. I grew up in the Bronx. I went to school primarily in the Bronx. I was in the Navy. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a man who's gay.
I grew up in Bed-Stuy. I am a grandmother of 5 grandchildren. I have 3 kids. I am a single mom. I was married twice. I have a mate now of 16 years as of today, and we're very happy. My lifestyle is an open book. At one time, it was not.
I went into the Navy in 1960, so I was 19 years old, and I was a year out of high school. In the Navy, I had, well, I was stationed in 2 places. I had a boyfriend when I was in Illinois. I had a boyfriend also in Massachusetts, you know, but all that was off the base. I kept my life separate.
But you see, when you're coming up as a young lady or young gentleman, and right away you have to get married, they put that stigma on you. You know, something is wrong if you don't get married. So, what do? You get married, and you still want to do what you want to do.
The boyfriend in Massachusetts almost cost me an undesirable discharge, because at that time it was before don't ask, don't tell, you know. Don't let me find out.
I look back and say, look where I am at today, opposed to if I had still been in the closet and be unhappy, what would I have been? Would I be here? Would I have committed suicide? You never know.
Griot Circle says that it's okay to be who you are, and it's okay to be comfortable with yourself.
I'm not going backwards. I don't walk backwards, I don't talk backwards. I'm going forward with my life. And within my life, I thank God for Griot, because Griot is a part of my life.
Well, there are lesbians and gays in every town, city, state, in every church, every school. The black community knows that. They've always known that there were lesbians and gays among them.
I think that gay people were invisible, old gay people were invisible heretofore, but now we are becoming visible, and we're going to let you know what our needs are so that we can age with dignity right along with everybody else.
When you come here to Griot, you do see a little homeness to it, you know? We can sit down and joke with each other, laugh with each other, as we say, read each other, but still we can turn around and ask, are you all right today? You know, and that's what it breaks down to being. Are you all right today?
I don't have family of my own, sir, to say, the Griot is my family. Griot's my family. And if I have a problem or just feel lonely, I know so I can find somebody to talk to.
There are people here that I've met that I plan to have as a friend for the rest of my life.
When Griot Circle started in 1996, it was just a small group of friends. Today, it has more than 400 members. The elders say they'd be happy to help other communities create Griot Circles of their own.
On the morning of October 16, 1995, about 300 black gay men took part in the Million Man March. We weren't quite sure how we would be received that day, but as we marched through the streets carrying signs and placards that announced that we were both black and gay, we gained confidence. As we arrived at the site of the march, the group of people assembled greeted us with applause and cheers and support. We learned something valuable from that experience. We learned that when we have the courage to be open and honest about who we are, people in our communities not only accept us, they respect us more. I'm Keith Boykin, and you're watching In the Life.
Our next segment is about two men, their two dogs, and their two homes, one of which rides atop 18 wheels. Carl Warren and Tom Walker are partners in life and in work. They share everything, including a victory over stereotypes and the status quo. Their story shows us that there are few walks of life left untouched by gay America. In the Life caught up with the pair at their home in Tallahassee, Florida, just before they went out on the road.
If you want to learn about somebody, become a trucker and go out with them. You learn everything.
Trucking is an unbelievable intimacy because we're with each other so much. You get to know each other better than we would if we had separate jobs here at home and only saw each other at night on the weekends.
Carl Warren and Tom Walker live in Tallahassee, Florida, and a number of other states while on the road as gay truckers. The couple met at an HIV support group. After years of casual friendship, something more developed.
I liked him a long time ago, but he was with somebody else. I'm like, I won't cross that line. You know, if they break up and I see him again, then I'll make my move.
I knew it was...
That's what happened.
I knew it was love, and we went out for coffee that night. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and the restaurant was closing. So we came back to my house. I was living around the corner at the time, and made coffee, and about 1 or 2 in the morning, looked into his face, and there was that, I call it the perfect moment. Time stops, and your entire world exists in that one moment in time, and that's when I knew. And it was, okay, it's time to run with this. There's something here. And so we never have, since then, we've never been apart.
Carl Warren and his semi are leased full-time to one of the largest trucking companies in the nation. On paper, Tom Walker is Carl's employee. Together they haul freight throughout the U.S. and Canada. When their relationship began, however, Carl did all the driving, and Tom was just along for the ride.
Basically, that's all he's doing is sitting in the passenger seat watching the world go by. Yeah, boredom gets the best of you after a while. So it worked out. He went to school, and shortly after that, we bought the truck. And that's when it got interesting.
Interesting, because while Tom now had his commercial driver's license, he lacked the experience required by the trucking company to be on the road as a team driver. The company requested that we not identify them, citing fears of negative reactions among customers and the general public. But they tell us at the time of Carl and Tom's request, company policy allowed only legally married couples, that is, husband and wife teams, to pair up in an on-the-job training type situation. Carl and Tom wanted that policy changed.
There were certain hiring requirements if I hired another driver, which basically was what was going to be happening. And he needed a year's experience, this type of training, that type of training, the list went on. And it was my driver manager, who still is, came up with the idea of putting him on under the spousal program. I mean, for God's sakes, all that was missing was a marriage certificate, house, checking account, the car. Our lives are so intertwined, it's not even funny. And she initiated going through the spousal program.
I was impressed with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, apparently she really cares about, her drivers, and it's like, she'll do what she has to try to make them happy. If you keep your drivers happy, they'll work harder for you.
It took 6 months, but the company rewrote its policies to include all non-married domestic partners, including gay and lesbian couples. Carl and Tom say their hauler responded positively to their requests, but it took time to write the policies properly. The efforts of these out and proud pioneers and those of their immediate supervisor helped pave the road ahead for other gay and lesbian truckers.
There's a lot more gay truckers than you'd think. Actually, for gay couples who, especially lesbians, lots of women. Gay couples who don't do the circuit, don't do, I'm going to the Hamptons this weekend. We're homebodies. When we're home, we're home. We don't go to clubs. And you'll find that most of the gay truckers are exactly like that. It's the perfect way to get to know someone better because you're together all the time. It's just a great way for gay couples to be able to stay together, and there's so many of them.
Come on, Jake, truck, Fozzie, truck.
Along with their dogs, Jake and Fozzie, the couple spends an average of 21 days in a row out on the open road, taking turns behind the wheel.
Let's go. Every now and then, it gets a little bit tedious. Whenever I get really aggravated or anything, I just kind of get real quiet. I guess we've kind of learned to tell when the other one's having a bad day or if they're in a real nasty mood or something like that. Just basically just let them alone.
Spending that much time together, especially on the truck in such a confined space, if he gets quiet, I'll ask every once in a while, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. But if we're running hard, believe it or not, we'll only see each other 3 hours of that day because either he's in the bunk or I am and the other one's driving because we have to take so much time off before we can drive again. Remind me at B service to have that clutch readjusted again.
Slip it.
Ever since the fuel pump blew.
Each clocks hundreds of hours and thousands of miles between return trips home.
Home time is very busy. In fact, we do more at home than we do on the road. You got to maintain the house, laundry. Just make sure that you keep the basics up.
In some ways, it's like having 2 homes to take care of because when we come in, not only does the house have to be taken care of, routine maintenance and bills getting paid and taking care of the dogs, making sure they're all set. Then we have our home on the road that has to be completely stripped down, cleaned, and put back together again before we go back out. Boy, this is gonna be good.
The only disadvantage that I don't like about trucking is you may have to go 2 or 3 days without a shower.
Yeah.
So, it's like a shower is
a luxury.
Is a luxury. It's like a gift from the gods.
When he starts talking about a good, hard, peel-your-skin shower, I know it's time to go home.
Whether on the road or at home, the couple tells us they don't get too many hassles from other truckers about being gay. They attribute that in large part to their open and honest approach to their lives.
We're also not the flamboyant type. We don't like, we're gay, here we are.
I mean, it's obvious that we're a couple. So we've been told. It's just that obvious that we're more than just friends and more than just driving partners. But we don't go out of our way to say, you know, hi, we're gay and all that.
I'm quite happy with the way things are. If I feel that I need time to myself, I'll stay home, let him go back out by himself, you know. But basically, I enjoy being around him and being with him and all that. And I really wouldn't have it any other way myself.
In a few years, Carl and Tom plan to buy a new truck and customize it just the way they want, so they can continue living life on the open road together.
The highlight of my day, and we've been together 2.5 years now, is still having time where we can just cuddle up and watch TV, or have a night where we can actually sleep together, even on the road. Sometimes that gets hard to do, despite the fact we're in the same space. That's still the highlight of my day. I love being around him. He complements my life in so many ways.
Be sure to tune in to the next episode of In the Life for an in-depth report on gay parenting, a look at the inspiring life of Father Michael Judge, and a camp that teaches tolerance. All this and more as In the Life celebrates the holidays with an encore of some of our best stories on families and friends. Next, here's writer Paul Rudnick's take on Jerry and Pat in our new series, Outtakes.
Following the terrorist attacks in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania, Jerry Falwell made the following statement, quote, "I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who have tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen." His host on CBN 700 Club, Pat Robertson, replied, quote, "I totally concur." Both men later apologized for their remarks without quite retracting them. These guys are not only repulsive, they're truly nuts. They blame a global tragedy on everything except long hair and that rock and roll music. They still love that phrase, alternative lifestyle, which always sounds like a retirement community in Florida. And those pagans and feminists, what about the Pink Ladies or the Olsen twins? The immediate outcry against Jerry and Pat seemed to stun them, at least for a moment. Jerry later said on his website that, quote, "In retrospect, I should have mentioned the national sins without mentioning the organizations and persons by name." So being gay is now a national sin. Who chooses these sins? Is it like selecting a national anthem or a state bird? Is a national sin like a national pastime? Take me out to an alternative ball game? Jerry also said that he, quote, "had no intention of being divisive." What was he after? A thank you note? A big warm hug? Here's the only possible apology that could really make a difference. I propose that Jerry and Pat get married to each other on a very special broadcast. Then all will be forgiven. I'd even throw rice. Well, I'd throw something. Amen.
For all of us at In the Life, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.
the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Amringen Foundation. Additional support provided by the Gill Foundation, the Overbrook Foundation, James Johnson, William J. Resnick, Peter Zimmer and Jim Stepp, the Arcus Foundation.
The Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice.
And the annual support of In the Life members like you.